I still remember that fateful day clearly. It was a gloomy Friday afternoon. The Chicago sky was filled with ominous gray clouds. I, Emily Carter, 28, was sitting at my desk, eagerly checking my email. My heart was pounding, an excitement that was hard to describe. Just a few days ago, Ethan, the man of my life, had proposed to me under the romantic sunset of Lincoln Park, and I had said yes without hesitation. Now all I had to wait for was the confirmation email from Willow Manor, the historic manor with the beautiful garden where I had dreamed of getting married since I was a little girl. It was more than just a place, it was a symbol of a new beginning, a happy future that I had saved penny by penny through years of hard work as a financial analyst. I clattered away on the keyboard, my eyes lighting up as I read the email subject. Willow Manor Deposit Confirmation, Emily Carter. A huge smile spread across my face. Congratulations, Emily. We are so happy to confirm Willow Manor as the venue for your dream wedding next July. I read each word aloud, feeling a surge of happiness that took my breath away. I had done it. My dream was about to come true. Just then, the phone rang, interrupting my sweet thoughts. The phone screen showed the number of Sophia, my older sister. Sophia was 3 years older than me, had long blonde hair, always dressed up, and had a smile that I used to think was charming, but now I knew was full of lies. I happily picked up the phone, wanting to share the good news immediately. "Honey, I was just about to call you," I said, my voice filled with joy. "I just got the confirmation email." On the other end of the line, Sophia's voice was sweet as sugar, but there was a hint of smugness in it, a hint of something that made me shiver. "Emily, can you believe it? I just put down a deposit on Willow Manor." My whole world collapsed in that moment. I was numb. My hands were shaking, the phone almost falling from my fingers. The smile on my face disappeared, replaced by a cold feeling running down my spine. "What? What did you say?" I stuttered, my voice losing all strength. "Willow Manor? No way. I already paid a deposit. Next July." Sophia snickered, the sound stabbing me in the heart. "Oh, really? Maybe they made a mistake, honey. I just got the confirmation for my May wedding to Lucas. What a coincidence, huh?" I felt like a huge block of ice was pressing down on my chest. The image of Sophia smiling contentedly on the other end of the line was clear before my eyes. That smile now became a deep cut into my soul. You're kidding me, right?" I trembled, hot tears began to fall. "This is not a joke, Sophia. That money is my $20,000 deposit." "Oh, why are you so nervous?" Sophia's voice was still calm, even a little mocking. "Maybe you should check the confirmation email again. I saw in my email that it clearly said Sophia Carter placed the deposit. Oh, by the way, I'm a bit busy. I have to go pick out a wedding dress. My dress has to be gorgeous, worthy of Willow Manor, right?" Sophia giggled, then hung up. I stood there, my face pale. The phone fell to the floor, making a dull thud in the quiet room. Tears fell. The office seemed to spin. Everything around me became blurry. I quickly reopened the email, checked the transaction history. Unbelievable. $20,000, all my savings, gone. That sentence, that smug smile, that sound of the phone disconnecting. It kept replaying in my head, like a broken tape that kept playing. The shock was not just the loss of my dream place, but the blatant betrayal by my own sister. Sophia had not only taken my money, she had taken away my dream, taken away the last bit of trust I had in her. The feeling of betrayal, of being hurt so deeply that I couldn't breathe. I felt suffocated, like 1,000 needles were stabbing my heart. All the memories of my childhood, of the times I was treated unfairly, abandoned, and overwhelmed by Sophia, suddenly came flooding back like a flood. And in that moment, standing alone in the empty room, with only the afternoon sunlight streaming through the large windows onto my haggard face, I knew things would never be the same again. I couldn't stand by. I had to find out. I had to confront this injustice. A fire of anger burned inside me, burning away all the pain and frustration. I wouldn't just demand justice, I would uncover the truth. This house, every brick, every door, was soaked with the scent of childhood. A childhood that was not as sweet as it appeared, even though it was a cozy colonial house in the suburbs of Chicago. My father, Robert, a successful lawyer, and my mother, Margaret, a famous journalist, built a home that everyone admired. But I always felt that I was lacking in fairness and complete love. I vividly remember a fateful dinner when I was 7 years old. Sophia, who was 3 years older than me, snatched my favorite stuffed doll right out of my hands. I whined and begged my mother to intervene. My mother, in an annoyingly gentle tone, simply said, "Sophia, give your sister back." But Sophia calmly replied, "I want to play with this doll. I like it more than my own." My father, instead of defending me, looked at me sternly. "Emily, you have to learn to share. Sophia is the older sister. You should sympathize with her." A few years later, when I won the leading role in the school play Snow White, my joy did not last long. Sophia suddenly announced that she would also join the acting class. She said to me, her eyes full of challenge, "Mom told me to join to learn more. If I get a role, I will definitely stand out more than you. Mom has already paid for me to take a private acting class with the most famous teacher in the city." And as expected, with the favor of her parents, Sophia was given a supporting role that stood out more than my leading role. During the performance, my parents just stared at Sophia, applauding her every move. While I felt like I was standing on an empty stage, the lights suddenly turned off. The feeling of being abandoned, of being ignored, of being taken for granted grew inside me, becoming an invisible scar, shaping me and my complicated relationship with Sophia. I learned to be independent, to rise up on my own, because I knew I couldn't rely on anyone else in my family. Anyone who looked at the pictures would think we were the perfect pair of sisters. Sophia smiled brightly, her arm around my shoulders. We looked like the two best friends in the world. But that was just a facade. An elaborate mask that hid a mess of emotions. I loved Sophia, but at the same time, I resented her. A lingering, simmering resentment. Even as an adult, I couldn't escape this invisible competitive cycle. After graduating from university, I chose a stable and challenging career path. Financial analyst. The job requires meticulousness, logic, and the ability to withstand high pressure, giving me confidence and financial independence. I don't need anyone to sponsor me or show me the way. Sophia, on the other hand, chose a more liberal path in advertising. She often bragged about her creative projects and lavish parties. "I like freedom. I like to do what I want," she often said. But I knew that behind that freedom facade was another truth. She always relied on her parents' connections, especially my father, a famous lawyer, to get opportunities. One time, I accidentally overheard Sophia on the phone. She was flattering my father to get a contract. It was always like that. She always needed an outside leverage, a favor from her parents to get what she wanted instead of trying on her own. Not only in work, but also in my personal life, Sophia was constantly competing with me. Everything had to be superior, had to be more unique than mine. I tried to ignore it, to live my own life. And I thought finally, I had something Sophia couldn't compete with. My love. I found Ethan, a gentle, calm man who brought me peace and understanding. He was the peace I'd been looking for, the only one who made me feel like I could be myself. After 18 months of dating, I knew I had found the one. The proposal took place under the romantic sunset in a lakeside park in Chicago. Ethan knelt before me, holding a sparkling ring, his eyes filled with love and sincerity. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I nodded vigorously, speechless with happiness. I do. After the proposal, it didn't take long for us to choose a wedding venue. Willow Manor, always Willow Manor. It had been my dream since I was a child. I had saved every penny, working for years to put up a $20,000 deposit for it. I believed that with Ethan, this dream would come true in its entirety. I withdrew the entire amount from my savings account and put down a deposit on Willow Manor, with the wedding set for the following July. While I was immersed in happiness and wedding plans, Sophia also had good news. She announced that Lucas, the man she had been dating for a few months, had proposed to her. Lucas was a real estate investor, handsome and polite, but his eyes seemed mischievous and unpredictable. I had met him a few times and felt something was wrong, but I dismissed that feeling. At the family dinner, Sophia couldn't stop showing off her huge, sparkling engagement ring. Look, Sophia shouted, holding up her hand for all to see. Lucas proposed to me. He's the most wonderful man. My mother hugged Sophia, and my father patted Lucas on the shoulder, smiling broadly. I tried to smile and said, "Congratulations, Sophia." Sophia turned to look at me, her eyes full of provocation as if to say, "You're better than me again." Thanks, sister. I know I've always wanted a different wedding, like a winter wedding. It has to be unique, unlike anyone else. You know, I hate repetition. Lucas, standing next to Sophia, smiled politely and continued, "My Sophia always has great ideas." At the time, I didn't suspect anything. I just thought she was trying to show her superiority over me, as always. I was wrong. Horribly wrong. Because it seemed there was no limit to Sophia's competitiveness, especially when it came to what she considered hers, or what she wanted over me. And Willow Manor, my dream, became part of this never-ending battle for dominance. 2 months after I put down my deposit on Willow Manor, I was at work one fateful Monday morning when an email window popped up. A nagging sense of foreboding gripped me. I took a deep breath and opened the email. The content that appeared on the screen made my heart stop. Dear Emily Carter, we can confirm that your $20,000 deposit has been transferred to Sophia Carter and the wedding date has been changed to May of next year, as requested. No way! I read the words over and over again, my face pale. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I felt like I was in a dream, a nightmare. Changed to Sophia? Changed the wedding date to May? It couldn't be happening. I immediately checked my original confirmation email and my bank history. $20,000. All my savings gone. Lost. Anger flared inside me, burning hot, burning away any remaining composure. This was no longer childish rivalry. This was theft, an unacceptable betrayal. I had to confront it, immediately. I remembered an evening a few weeks ago when I had accidentally left my laptop open and unlocked while visiting my parents' house. I had only gone to the kitchen to get a glass of water for a few minutes. But when I returned, I saw Sophia scrolling through her phone hastily and looking at my computer with a strange look. "I forgot my computer," she said, her face impassive. At the time, I hadn't noticed. But now it was clear. Sophia, or maybe Lucas, had used that moment to gain access to my email account. I immediately went to my email trash. And there it was. A deleted email. Subject line, schedule error notification from Willow Manor, informing me that my July date had been mistakenly and was no longer available. I almost believed it. But when I zoomed in on the email, I noticed a slight misspelling of Willow Manor's contact name and a slightly different font than the original email I had received. It was clearly a fake email sent to throw me off guard. Furthermore, I found another email sent from my address to Willow Manor requesting a deposit transfer. The tone, the wording, everything was exactly the way I usually wrote. Sophia had used my own email to forge the request. And finally, I checked the email log. There was an unfamiliar IP address from a public network near my parents' house, logging into my account at the exact moment I left my computer on. The evidence was clear and undeniable. Anger flared inside me, burning hot, burning away any remaining composure. This was no longer childish rivalry. This was theft, an unacceptable betrayal. I had to confront it, immediately. That evening, I arrived at my parents' house early for dinner. The atmosphere in the house was suffocatingly heavy. I sat across from Sophia in the dining room, my hand shaking as I held my phone, the screen displaying the transfer confirmation email and the forged evidence I had just found. Sophia was smirking, her eyes full of challenge, as if she already knew what I was going to do. "Explain, Sophia. What is this email about?" I asked, my voice shaking but angry, trying to contain my rage. "What did you do with my deposit?" Sophia looked at me with mock surprise, raising her eyebrows innocently. "What are you talking about, Emily? What deposit? I don't understand." I couldn't take it anymore. I threw the phone on the table, making a loud noise. "Stop pretending. You forged my email, transferred $20,000 of my money to your name to hold your wedding at Willow Manor. Why did you do that? Can you explain the spelling mistake in this fake email, Sophia? Or the strange IP address accessing my email from my parents' house? My father, Robert, and my mother, Margaret, entered the dining room. Hearing the arguing, my father immediately spoke up, his voice stern. Emily, what are you talking about? Sophia is your sister. This must be a misunderstanding. My mother, Margaret, looked at the evidence on my phone. Her expression went from frown to concern, then confusion. If what you say is true, then we made a terrible mistake, Emily. But how can we face Sophia doing this? She can't. My mother looked at Sophia, her eyes torn between blind faith and obvious truth. Tell me, Sophia, what is this? Sophia, with a triumphant smirk, added fuel to the fire. Come on, honey. I'm your sister after all. I have priority, right? I'll have a great wedding there. Don't worry. Besides, why do you think I want to marry Lucas? Lucas said he'll make a lot of money. I just want to secure my life. Do you know how my parents always compare me to you? Always telling me to be better than you, to overshadow you so I won't be forgotten. I stood up abruptly, the chair falling back with a loud crash. My eyes were blazing as I looked straight at my parents, my voice trembling but full of weight and determination. You may not believe me. You may think I'm jealous or sensitive, but I won't let this go. I won't let this family be destroyed because of your blindness anymore. I turned and walked away, leaving behind my parents' calls and Sophia's obnoxious giggles. In that moment, I knew I couldn't give in anymore. I wouldn't tolerate this injustice any longer. I had to find out. I had to find out about Lucas, the man she was about to marry. A cold yet determined feeling crept into my heart. The game was on. I reluctantly showed up at Sophia and Lucas's engagement party, held at a posh apartment in downtown Chicago. I put on my maid of honor dress and tried to smile, but my mind was still filled with anger and hurt from the Willow Manor shock. I felt out of place among the glamorous guests who were congratulating Sophia and Lucas, unaware of the true nature of their relationship. Actually, I wasn't here to celebrate. I had another purpose: to find out about Lucas. Who was he? Why had Sophia gotten so quickly engaged to a man who seemed so suspicious to me? I had a bad feeling about Lucas from the first glance. His flashy appearance, his overconfidence, and the occasional mischievous glint in his eyes made me wary. As a financial analyst, I was trained to see past superficialities, and Lucas had set off alarm bells in me. I moved through the crowd, trying not to be noticed by anyone, especially Sophia. She was laughing and chatting happily, holding hands with Lucas, looking like the perfect couple. I took a sip of wine, the bitter taste only adding to the bitterness in my heart. I tried to eavesdrop on the conversations around me, looking for any clues about Lucas or his work. The soft music and the buzz of conversation made it difficult to concentrate. I moved quietly to a corner of the balcony where there seemed to be less people. I heard Lucas and Sophia talking, their voices hushed but clear enough for me to catch a few keywords. Lucas was holding a glass of wine, his expression confident, while Sophia was giggling, her eyes gleaming with greed. Mr. Robert is completely convinced, Lucas said, his confidence carrying a hint of falsehood. The Miami real estate project will be a gold mine. Guaranteed 15% returns in just 6 months. He seems very interested. The important thing is to make them believe that this is a unique opportunity, only for close friends. My heart was pounding. 15% return in 6 months? As a financial analyst, I knew that number was too unrealistic, too attractive to be suspicious. No investment could guarantee such high returns in such a short period of time without coming with huge risks or, worse, being a scam. Awesome, Sophia exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. If your parents invest, their friends will follow. You're a genius, Lucas. Just make sure nothing goes wrong. I don't want any trouble. Sure, honey, Lucas added, his voice full of triumph. The key is to build trust. They seem to have a lot of faith in our relationship, Sophia. Robert has faith in his daughter, and his friends have faith in Robert. It's a perfect circle. I retreated from the kitchen quietly, trying not to make any noise. I felt sick. My suspicions were confirmed. Lucas wasn't just a gold digger. He was a professional con man. And Sophia, whether she knew everything or not, was part of the scheme, or at least a tool for Lucas to get close to gullible people. I couldn't stand by. My parents, who had blindly trusted Sophia and her connections, could be next. Lucas's company, Sterling Investments, was etched in my mind. It all started here. I couldn't stand by and watch my family get ripped off, no matter how they treated me. My fight had shifted from personal justice to exposing a larger conspiracy, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. The light from my computer screen illuminated my face in the dark room, and the clock on the wall read 2 a.m. Outside, Chicago had fallen asleep, but I kept typing, accessing the financial databases that I had access to. Was it family loyalty? Or truth and justice? The question echoed in my head, tearing me apart. I was a financial analyst. My job was to protect my clients from risk and fraud. And now my own family, my parents, were at risk of becoming victims of an elaborate financial conspiracy. I couldn't turn a blind eye. I started with Sterling Investments, Lucas's company. The computer screen displayed its registration information. I frowned. Sterling Investments was incorporated only 10 months ago, I muttered to myself. Too new. No reliable financial records. No operating history. No publicly audited financial statements. That's a huge red flag. From experience, I knew that startups were often fronts for shady activities, especially when they promised unusually high returns. I dug deeper. I combed through reports, documents, and corporate records, trying to find any details that might help me better understand Lucas and his operations. I encountered difficulties. Some of the information was heavily redacted, requiring me to use technical skills and even minor hacking to access publicly available but restricted databases. Sometimes I had to pretend to be a reporter to contact old sources, but was often rebuffed or met with skepticism. My eyes fell on a small but important detail. Another name was mentioned in a document related to a small civil lawsuit that had been dismissed years earlier. Lucas Thorne, under investigation in Texas, under another name. My heart beat faster. I immediately dug deeper into the federal database, searching for old legal records. And there it was, a file from Texas, 5 years ago. Lucas Thorne, but under the name David Miller, had been investigated for securities fraud. Not convicted, I read aloud the words on the screen, but investigated due to lack of concrete evidence. Not convicted, but under investigation. I mumbled, feeling a chill. Surely it wasn't a coincidence. Con artists often change names and locations to hide their criminal pasts. Lucas Thorne, aka David Miller, had a shady history, and his past acquittals only demonstrated his sophistication and ability to cover his tracks. Next, I turned to the Miami real estate projects that Lucas had bragged about to my parents. He painted a rosy picture of luxury beachfront projects and eco-resorts that promised huge profits. I searched through city zoning maps, building permits, and Miami real estate development reports. Absolutely no trace. I tapped the keyboard, frustration and anger rising. No building permits, no projects underway on any of the land he named. It was all a mirage. It was obvious. This was a Ponzi scheme. He was using new investors' money to pay off old investors, creating the illusion of huge profits. During further investigation, I also came across a few emails exchanged between Sophia and Lucas. There was no clear evidence that Sophia knew about the entire scheme, but there were her questions about safety and personal profit from these transactions, along with Lucas's assurances that just keep helping me build relationships and attract new investors. Everything is under control. This showed that Sophia knew that Lucas was doing shady business, and she was still helping him for her own benefit. Concern for my parents, coupled with anger over Sophia's theft, spurred me to action. Loyalty to my family was a value I held dear, but when that loyalty collided with moral responsibility and the truth, I knew I had to choose the right thing. I couldn't let them lose everything. I couldn't let Lucas continue to deceive others. I spent the rest of the night organizing all the evidence I had gathered. The documents about the ephemeral Sterling investments, the files on Lucas under the name David Miller, and his previous fraud investigations, the evidence of the phantom projects in Miami, and even the suspicious emails from Sophia. I printed it all out and filed it all in a thick binder. I knew this would cause a firestorm in my family, but I was ready. This was my fight, not just for me, but for all of Lucas's other victims, and more importantly, for my own conscience. The rain was pattering outside my apartment window, the drops tapping against the glass as a sign of a restless evening. I sat on the sofa, clutching a hot cup of coffee, but its warmth could not dispel the coldness in my heart. Sophia had called earlier, asking me to be her maid of honor. Her voice was still sweet but full of sarcasm, constantly mocking me for losing Willow Manor. Honey, I know you're upset about Willow Manor, but I still need you as my maid of honor, right? Sophia's voice echoed through the phone, like a knife cutting into a wound. Don't ruin my day. I'm going to have a great wedding there, just like you dreamed. I hung up, my face contorted in anger and helplessness. Enough. I can't take this anymore, I muttered to myself, trying to contain my seething rage. Ethan walked into the living room, seeing my tense expression. He sat down next to me, his eyes filled with concern. What's wrong, Emily? You don't look well. I looked up, my eyes filling with tears. All the weight, all the fear, all the horrible truths I had discovered about Lucas came crashing down. Ethan? I looked into Lucas. He's a fraud. A Ponzi scheme. He's scammed a lot of people and he's trying to get my parents to invest. Ethan gripped my hand, his eyes steady and reassuring. Then we have to do something. You can't let this go on. Do you have proof? I nodded, pointing to the thick stack of documents on the coffee table. It's all here. The company records, his history of fraud under other names, the fake projects. Everything is clear. I sighed, feeling like a boulder was pressing down on me. I was thinking about reporting him to the SEC, but he's Sophia's fiancé. He's my sister. He's my family. How bad could it get? Ethan looked me straight in the eye, his voice warm and persuasive. Emily, you are a moral person. You know what is right and what is wrong. You are a financial analyst. It is your responsibility to protect others from scammers. You are protecting your parents. You are protecting others from being scammed. And more importantly, you are protecting yourself from this manipulation. This is not about Sophia anymore, or what she did to you. This is about justice. You have to do what is right. If you don't, who will? Ethan's words were like a cool breeze that soothed my soul and gave me strength. He was always the only one who saw me for who I was and supported me unconditionally. Even when Sophia deliberately spread baseless rumors about Ethan and the family, he did not flinch. Instead, he quietly helped me review Lucas's public financial reports, looking for irregularities that I might have missed, proving his loyalty and trustworthiness with concrete actions. I took a deep breath, wiped away the remaining tears on my cheeks, and nodded resolutely. You're right. I have to do it. That night, I returned to the office. There was no more hesitation or fear. I sat in front of my computer in the dark office, the only light from the screen illuminating my determined face. I opened an incognito browser window and went to the SEC website. It was time to let it all out. I began typing, word by word, detailing Sterling investments, the fake projects in Miami, and Lucas Thorne, who had changed his name to hide his fraudulent past. I attached all the evidence I had gathered, the unreliable company documents, the reports of Lucas's previous investigations, my analysis of the Ponzi scheme he was running, and even Sophia's questionable emails. Every word I typed, every piece of evidence I attached, was a brick in the wall of justice. I didn't know what the consequences would be. I didn't know how my family would react, but I knew I had made the right choice. This was my fight, not just for me, but for all of Lucas's other victims, and more importantly, for my own conscience. Finally, I pressed the submit button. The screen displayed, "Your report has been submitted successfully." I breathed a sigh of relief. a strange sense of relief. The burden had been lifted somewhat, but my heart was still heavy. I knew that this was only the beginning. The biggest battle, the confrontation with my family and the consequences of my actions, was still ahead. But at least I had taken action. I was no longer a victim. My life became a series of stressful and fake days. I had to continue my role as bridesmaid while keeping the ongoing investigation a secret. Every time Sophia appeared, I had to brace myself, trying to keep a straight face and hide the anxiety that was gnawing at me. She seemed to have a vague sense that something was wrong, and her actions became more and more toxic, as if trying to push me to the limit. One afternoon, as we were trying on bridesmaid dresses at a fancy store, Sophia turned to me, her eyes gleaming maliciously beneath her flawless makeup. "That dress suits you, Emily," she said, her voice sweet but laced with sarcasm. "By the way, I heard Ethan's been going out a lot lately, right? Rumor has it there's someone else. Be careful, don't get cheated on." I stiffened, anger flared inside me, burning hot. "What are you talking about? Don't make this up!" I growled, trying to keep myself from losing my temper. Sophia shrugged indifferently, her expression feigning innocence. "Oh, I'm just worried about you. There's nothing we can't talk about with each other, right? After all, men are hard to trust, especially those who have nothing in their hands." She was always trying to stir up trouble in my life, trying to sabotage my relationship with Ethan. She wanted me to lose focus, to break down so that I couldn't do anything. But I knew this was all part of her plan, to weaken me so that she could continue to have control. A few days later, as I sat in my office, trying to concentrate on work, but my mind was racing, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then picked up. "Hello, Ms. Carter. This is Special Agent Laura Bennett with the FBI. The professional, crisp voice came from the other end of the line. "We have received your report on Lucas Thorne and Sterling Investments. We want you to know that Lucas Thorne has been on our radar for some time. We have had several witnesses from previous victims, but your report is the final piece we need to complete our case and move forward." I was stunned. I covered my mouth with my hand, my eyes wide with surprise and a little fear. He was already investigated?" "Yes," Agent Bennett confirmed. "You have provided very important information that will help us strengthen our case and expedite our investigation. However, you must maintain absolute secrecy regarding this investigation. Any revelation could derail everything, giving Lucas the opportunity to escape or hide further evidence." Yes, I understand." I stammered, feeling a huge pressure on my shoulders. I hung up, gasping for breath. At the same time, my phone rang again. It was my mother. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself before answering. "Emily, did you know?" Mom's voice was cheerful and full of excitement. "Mom and Dad just decided to invest $150,000 in Lucas's fund. He said he would guarantee a 15% return in 6 months. Just think, we'll be rich soon." I was struck by lightning. My whole body stiffened. $150,000. That was my parents' entire savings, their retirement money. I stood frozen in the middle of the Chicago street. All the sounds around me seemed to disappear. Only my mother's cheerful voice echoed in my head. "Mom, what did you do? $150,000? I asked again, my voice choked, barely able to get out. "That's right. He's Sophia's fiancé. You have to trust him." My mother remained carefree, completely unaware of the approaching storm. "You don't need to worry. Sophia said it. Lucas is a financial genius." I hung up. Tears fell silently down my cheeks, hot and salty. I wanted to scream, to warn my parents, to tell them everything about Lucas, what he had done and what he was about to do. But I couldn't. I had to keep it a secret. I had to protect the investigation. This burden, it weighed on me, heavier than anything I had ever felt. I felt helpless, hopeless. I was trying to protect my family, but my silence was putting them at risk. The pressure didn't just come from the secrecy. One evening, as I was walking home, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then picked it up. A low, unfamiliar voice came from the other end, cold and creepy. "You think you're so smart, Emily? You don't know who's behind Lucas. You better keep your mouth shut or you'll get in trouble. We know what you're doing. You're being watched. He hung up. I shivered, looking around. A black car was parked not far away, its headlights flashing suspiciously. My heart pounded. Lucas had hired someone to follow me. The sense of danger was overwhelming, but it also ignited a fire of determination in me. I wouldn't back down. A few days later, during a wedding dress fitting, I accidentally bumped into Lucas while he was with Sophia. Lucas deliberately avoided my gaze, but when Sophia turned away, he leaned close to my ear and whispered with a smirk, "Don't mess things up, Emily. There are things you shouldn't get involved in. You'd better worry about your wedding." His eyes were full of meaning, as if to say, "I know everything." A sense of danger crept in, but I kept my face calm, not revealing any emotions. I wouldn't back down. Every day feels like I'm walking a tightrope, pretending like nothing is happening, while waiting for the moment everything falls apart. Sophia's wedding day at Willow Manor, which should have been the happiest day of my life, had become a living nightmare. I stood in the bridesmaids' line, my emerald green gown clutching my pounding chest. Despite the gorgeous surroundings, with their fresh flowers, soft silks, and soft music, I felt a surge of tension wash over me. I tried to keep a calm face, but my heart was pounding like it was going to burst out of my chest, signaling the storm that was about to hit. Sophia walked down the aisle, hand in hand with my father, Robert. She was dressed in a gorgeous white gown, her face glowing with false happiness, as if she were the queen of the world. Lucas waited at the end of the aisle, smiling smugly. Little did he know that in just a few minutes, his true colors would be revealed. I stared at him, trying not to show any emotion. All I wanted was this moment, the moment of justice. "This is it," I whispered to myself, both anxious and relieved. This moment. Either it's over or it's all broken. There's no going back. The priest began the ceremony, his voice deep and solemn. "Lucas Thorne, do you take Sophia Carter to be your wedded wife? To love and to cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, all the days of your life?" "I agree," Lucas replied, his voice full of smugness. "Sophia Carter, do you take Lucas Thorne to be your husband, to love and to cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, all the days of your life?" "I agree," Sophia smiled brightly, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "Then I pronounce you husband and wife." The priest smiled. "You may now kiss the bride." Lucas bent down and kissed Sophia. The guests clapped loudly and cheers of congratulations echoed throughout the hall. Sophia and Lucas turned around and walked brightly down the aisle. Everyone stood up and applauded, and the atmosphere was filled with joy. As they stepped out of Willow Manor's main gate and into the outdoor reception area, a deafening sound cut through the festive atmosphere. Police sirens blared from outside, getting closer and louder. All eyes turned to the front door, where a group of FBI agents, led by Agent Laura Bennett, burst in. Agent Bennett's face was cold and determined. "Lucas Thorne." Agent Bennett's voice boomed loud and clear, echoing throughout the hall, silencing all conversation. "You are under arrest for financial fraud." The entire auditorium held its breath. The once cheerful scene suddenly turned into chaos. Lucas stood frozen, his face as white as a sheet of paper, the smug smile on his lips gone, replaced by a look of utter terror. He tried to run away, but the agents quickly closed in, restrained him, and handcuffed him. Sophia, who was standing in the middle of the aisle, witnessed the scene, her gorgeous face contorted in shock and horror. She let out a piercing scream that tore through the air, rushing towards Lucas like a moth to a flame, trying to shield him. "No, impossible, Lucas, what's going on?" She tried to struggle with the agents, but was firmly stopped by them. Despair and madness were written all over her face. Then she turned to look at me. Her eyes filled with hatred, her face twisted with rage. What did you do?" "What?" "You ruined my wedding. You were always jealous of me. You wanted to ruin my life." She screamed, her voice shrill, pointing her finger straight at my face. I looked Lucas straight in the eyes as he was handcuffed. In his eyes, I saw anger, hatred, and a hint of resignation. But most of all, I saw the realization that it was me, Emily, who had ended his game. I didn't return his gaze, just kept my expression cold. My victory wasn't a moment of gloating, but of liberation. My father, Robert, and my mother, Margaret, stood beside Sophia, their faces pale with fear, shock, and a mixture of anger and utter confusion. They looked at Lucas being captured, then at the screaming Sophia, and finally at me. "Emily!" my father roared, his voice filled with anger. But there was also shock and an indescribable pain in his eyes. "What is this? You knew about this? Why didn't you tell us? Do you want to destroy this family?" My mother sobbed, her eyes filled with tears, looking at me with pain and reproach, but also with utter confusion about what was happening before her eyes. "What are you doing, Emily? You are my sister. Why would you do this?" I stood there in the center of the storm, my gaze fixed on Sophia, then on my parents. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My eyes said it all. My disappointment, my pain, and most of all, my determination. Lucas was handcuffed and led away from the altar amid the chaos and chatter of the guests. Sophia screamed in pain, collapsed to the floor, her pure white wedding dress now a disgrace. The entire Willow Manor was in chaos. The crying, the screaming, the chatter. It was all a cacophony of devastation. In that moment, I stood alone in the chaotic chapel of Willow Manor. My eyes swept over the ruined flowers, the overturned chairs, looking out at the garden I had dreamed of. I no longer felt pain or jealousy. Instead, I realized that this Willow Manor was no longer my dream. It had become a symbol of truth revealed and liberation. I smiled softly, a smile of freedom and serenity, as I realized that true happiness did not lie in a place, but within me and the man I loved. Justice had come, right where the betrayal began, right here at Willow Manor, where Sophia had stolen my dreams. The moment was deeply symbolic, but the price had been too high. My family had been torn apart before my eyes, and I knew the road ahead would be difficult. 6 months after Lucas's arrest, the Carter family was in turmoil. Each day brought a new painful revelation. Lucas was taken into custody shortly after the stormy wedding, and an FBI investigation quickly exposed the full horror of his scheme. He had swindled $30 million from more than 80 gullible investors who had placed their trust in the false promises of huge returns. My parents, Robert and Margaret, who had once prided themselves on their financial savvy, now faced the grim reality that they had lost their entire $150,000 savings, the retirement fund they had built up over their lifetimes. They sat in the living room, looking tired and visibly older. The room that had once echoed with laughter was now filled with a heavy silence, broken only by Dad's occasional sigh or Mom's choked sob. Lucas Thorne. He defrauded over 80 investors out of $30 million, my dad said, his voice hoarse with frustration. "We lost everything. $150,000. Gone up in smoke." My mother sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "How can we trust someone like that? Why us?" I sat across from them, conflicted. On one hand, I felt sorry for my parents. On the other hand, I was still disappointed and angry. "I tried to warn you," I said, my voice firm but also sad. "I told you something was wrong, but you wouldn't listen." Silence fell. My parents bowed their heads, not daring to look me in the eye. At that moment, my grandmother Helen, whom I had always trusted and respected, entered the room. My grandmother was a woman of few words, but always had a hidden majesty and sharpness. She was the only one in the family who had always treated me fairly, and she had witnessed everything that had happened between Sophia and I since we were children. "Hello, Emily," said Grandma, her voice warm and kind. "You did great. I always believed in you." Grandmother Helen sat down in her chair, looking at Robert and Margaret with a gentle but firm gaze. "Robert, Margaret," she said, her voice soft but full of weight. "It's time for you to tell Emily the truth. It's time for everything to come out. My parents looked at each other, then bowed their heads. There was a long silence, as if they were struggling with themselves. Finally, my father sighed, a heavy sigh filled with regret. Emily, you know, when you were born, Sophia, she had a hard time. He began, his voice trembling. She always felt replaced, abandoned. We we were afraid she would feel sorry for herself, afraid she would feel unimportant. My mother continued, tears still streaming down her cheeks. We paid so much attention to Sophia, trying to make up for her so she wouldn't feel overshadowed by you. We favored Sophia. We're sorry, honey. We didn't realize it was hurting you. It felt like a heavy stone had been lifted from my heart. The truth was out. The source of all the problems, all the injustices, all the pain I had endured throughout my childhood and into adulthood was finally revealed. It brought clarity, but it also hurt to the core. I had always known something was wrong, but I had never thought it was my parents' fear and guilt. I stood up and walked towards my parents, my voice trembling but full of emotion. Replaced? Overshadowed? What about me? My eyes were blurred with tears. I am your daughter too. I need to be loved, to be acknowledged. You made me feel like I was not good enough. Never good enough. You made Sophia what she is today. A selfish, jealous, and willing to do anything to get what she wants. You have to admit it. You have to admit your mistakes. My father and mother looked at me, their eyes filled with remorse, tears continuing to fall. They didn't say anything, but I knew they had truly recognized their mistakes. That confrontation, it was painful, but necessary. It was like a surgical incision into the deep wound of the family, exposing the pus that had been accumulating for so long. The root of all the problems was exposed. And that was the first step to healing, although I don't know if this wound will ever heal, and my family relationship can return to the way it was. But at least, the truth was told. My wedding took place on a windy beach in Michigan under a glorious sunset. No grand Willow Manor, no fanfare or outside pressure, just the sound of the waves, a gentle breeze, and the people I loved most. Before walking down the aisle, I stood alone on the beach, my bare feet touching the soft sand. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath of the salty scent of the ocean. Every memory, from the trauma of my childhood to the shock of betrayal at Willow Manor and my lonely struggle, all appeared in slow motion. I had lost Willow Manor, lost a part of my family as I knew it, but I had found something much more precious. I had found myself. I had learned to stand up, to fight for justice, and to love myself. That was the most important thing. I opened my eyes and looked out at the horizon, where the sun was slowly setting, dyeing the sea pink. A small smile appeared on my lips. I was ready. I wore a simple, elegant wedding dress, feeling truly relieved and happy. Ethan stood beside me, his eyes filled with love and peace, making all my worries disappear. My parents, Robert and Margaret, sat in the front row. Though the awkwardness was still there, and the cracks in our relationship had not yet fully healed, they smiled slightly as they looked at me. Next to them was my grandmother, Helen, her eyes filled with pride at seeing me finally find true happiness. She squeezed my hand as I passed, a reassuring squeeze. As I was adjusting my hair in front of the mirror, a waiter brought me a small envelope. There was no name from me, but I recognized the familiar initials on the corner. They were Sophia's. My heart sank. I opened the letter and took a deep breath. Dear Emily, I read silently, each word clearly on the page. I know, I may have hurt you. I always believed that I had to try harder to be recognized. Maybe I chose the wrong path. I hope that one day you can find your own peace and happiness. Since I was little, my parents always told me that I had to be better than you, that I had to overshadow you so that I wouldn't be forgotten. I was wrong to let that pressure turn me into that person. Lucas took advantage of my greed, but I am partly to blame for all of this. I folded the letter. It was not only an acknowledgement, but also a small ray of light that Sophia had begun to look at herself. It gave me a little hope, however fragile. After the wedding, I wrote back to Sophia. I wrote back and forth, each word carefully weighed, between the lingering anger and the desire to heal. In the end, I sent a letter that not only expressed forgiveness but not forgetting, but also an invitation to a new beginning if Sophia truly changed. Perhaps one day, when we were both older, when the wounds had lessened, we might find a way to heal. But that would take time, and more importantly, effort from both sides. Ethan and I walked hand in hand along the beach, the sound of the waves soothing my soul. Ethan turned to me and asked, "What are you thinking about?" I smiled slightly, my eyes looking far away to the horizon where the sun was slowly setting, dyeing the sea pink. I was thinking, this journey, it's been so harsh, but it's taught me so many things about love, about forgiveness, about the strength of myself. Sophia's betrayal has pushed me on a journey I never thought I would go through. It has left me heartbroken, devastated, and devastated. But paradoxically, it has also forced me to face the hard truths about my family, about what I have endured. It has forced me to find the inner strength to stand up, to fight for myself, for justice. I lost my dream of the perfect wedding at Willow Manor, but I found a more authentic life, a true love with Ethan, and most importantly, I found myself. A stronger, more resilient Emily who knows what she deserves. I am no longer the weak Emily, always in Sophia's shadow. I am no longer the woman who is afraid to face injustice. I have learned that happiness is not in what others give you, but in how you face challenges and find your own value. I have lost, I have been hurt, but I have stood up. And I have won, not by revenge, but by finding peace and justice for myself. My parents are still actively participating in weekly family therapy sessions. They have learned to listen more, and although the conversations are still difficult, I sense the sincerity in their efforts. Although the healing process is long, I believe we are moving in the right direction, step by step.